Hey guys, welcome back to Reading the Bible in a Year. It is February 12th. Well, to be honest, technically it's not February 12th. I'm just doing the February 12th reading today. It's been a pretty rough week here in Texas in terms of the winter storm and the snow and no electricity, no water. Just a lot has taken place in the past week and a half. So, needless to say, I have not been able to keep up with the recordings as I had planned originally. But I'm here nonetheless. And my goal is really not to, completely miss any days. If there is a day that I did indeed miss, I'm making it a promise to myself to go back and read those days. So last we left off was on February 11th, where we dealt with a lot of prophecy by Balak. And we're just gonna get straight into it today for the February 12th reading. So I just want to thank you guys for your patience. Those are the few of you that are, watching and listening to me read. I really appreciate your patience during this time and me not uploading the videos. But it's a lot to get through for the days that I've missed, but I am gonna do my best to get all the days completely covered, okay? So continue on in succession. February 12th. And despite the promise of military success over their political enemies, the Israelites soon find themselves defeated at their weakest point. That is, morally. At the urging of Balaam, the very man who has just blessed the Israelites, the Midianites deliberately and cunningly scheme to destroy Israel. The plan is to use the Midianite women to lure Israelite men first into bed and then into obscene worship of a sensuous idol. The Midianites correctly understand that such worship would be a death blow to this unique theocratic nation. It takes little time for the men of Israel to be attracted by the Midianite women in Moab, and equally little time to be seduced into worshiping Baal of Peor, the fertility god, which the women worship. Israel's seduction serves as a good example of how personal relationships, particularly wrong ones, can easily influence religious preferences, and why the Israelites are so severely restricted from mixing with foreigners. The impudence of one Israelite in flaunting a foreign woman before the congregation of God's people is met with a forceful response by Eleazar's son, Phinehas. In God's own wrath against the adulterous Israelites results in thousands dying of the plague for their transgressions. So that was just a little highlight of what we're going to get into today. So we're reading from Numbers 25, verse 1, and we're going to take that all the way through to Numbers 31, verse 54. While Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with Moabite women who invited them to the sacrifices of their gods. The people ate the sacrificial meal and bowed down before these gods. So Israel yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger burned against them. The Lord said to Moses, "Take all the leaders of these people, kill them, and expose them in broad daylight before the Lord, so that the Lord's fierce anger may turn away from Israel." So Moses said to Israel's judges, "Each of you must put to death those of your people who have yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor." Then an Israelite man brought into the camp a Midianite woman right before the eyes of Moses and the whole assembly of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance to the tent of the meeting. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he left the assembly, took a spear in his hand, and followed the Israelite into the tent. He drove the spear into both of them, right through the Israelite man and into the woman's stomach. Then the plague against the Israelites was stopped, but those who died in the plague numbered 24,000. The Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned my anger away from the Israelites. Since he was as zealous for my honor among them as I am, I did not put an end to them in my zeal. Therefore tell him I am making my covenant of peace with him. He and his descendants will have a covenant of a lasting priesthood because he was zealous for the honor of his God and made atonement for the Israelites. The name of the Israelite who was killed with a Midianite woman was Zimri, son of Salu, the leader of a Simeonite family. And the name of the Midianite woman who was put to death was Cosbi, daughter of Zur, a tribal chief of a Midianite family. The Lord said to Moses, treat the Midianites as enemies and kill them. They treated you as enemies when they deceived you in the Pereer incident involving their sister Cosbi, the daughter of a Midianite leader, the woman who was killed when the plague came as a result of that incident. The Lord said to Moses, take vengeance on the Midianites for the Israelites. After that, you will be gathered to your people. So Moses said to the people, arm some of your men to go to war against the Midianites so that they may carry out the Lord's vengeance on them. Send into battle 1,000 men from each of the tribes of Israel. So 12,000 men armed for battle, 1,000 from each tribe, were supplied from the clans of Israel. Moses sent them into battle, 1,000 from each tribe, along with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, who took with him articles from the sanctuary and the trumpets for signaling. They fought against Midian as the Lord commanded Moses and killed every man. Among their victims were Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. The Israelites captured the Midianite women and children and took all the Midianite herds, flocks, and goods as plunder. They burned all the towns where the Midianites had settled, as well as all their camps. They took all the plunder with the spoils, including the people and animals, and brought the captives, spoils, and plunder to Moses and Eleazar the priest, and the Israelite assembly at their camp on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the community went to meet them outside the camp. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds who returned from the battle. Have you allowed all the women to live? He asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and enticed the Israelites to be unfaithful to the Lord in the Peor incident, so that a plague struck the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Anyone who has killed someone or touched someone who was killed must stay outside the camp 7 days. On the 3rd and 7th days, you must purify yourselves and your captives. Purify every garment as well as everything made of leather, goat hair, or wood. Then Eleazar the priest said to the soldiers who had gone into battle, This is what is required by the law that the Lord gave Moses. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, lead, and anything else that can withstand fire must be put through fire, and then it will be clean. But it must also be purified with the water of cleansing. And whatever cannot withstand fire must be put through that water. On the seventh day, wash your clothes, and you will be clean. Then you may come into the camp. The Lord said to Moses, "You and Eleazar the priest and the family heads of the community are to count all the people and animals that were captured. Divide the spoils equally between the soldiers who took part in the battle and the rest of the community. From the soldiers who fought in the battle, set apart as tribute for the Lord 1 out of every 500, whether people, cattle, donkeys, or sheep. Take this tribute from their half share and give it to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part. From the Israelites' half, select 1 out of every 50, whether people, cattle, donkeys, sheep, or other animals. Give them to the Levites, who are responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle." So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. The plunder remaining, The plunder remaining from the spoils that the soldiers took was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 women who had never slept with a man. The half share of those who fought in the battle was 337,500 sheep, of which the tribute for the Lord was 675. 36,000 cattle, of which the tribute for the Lord was 72. 30,500 donkeys, of which the tribute for the Lord was 61. 16,000 people, of whom the tribute for the Lord was 32. Moses gave the tribute to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part, as the Lord commanded Moses. The half belonging to the Israelites, which Moses set apart from that of the fighting men, the community half, was 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 people. From the Israelites' half, Moses selected 1 out of every 50 people and animals as the Lord commanded him, and gave them to the Levites, who were responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. Then the officers who were over the units of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, went to Moses and said to him, "Your servants have counted the soldiers under your command, and not one is missing. So we have brought as an offering to the Lord the gold articles each of us acquired, armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord." Moses and Eleazar the priest accepted from them the gold, all the crafted articles. All the gold from the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds that Moses and Eleazar presented as a gift to the Lord weighed 16,750 shekels. Each soldier had taken plunder for himself. Moses and Eleazar the priest accepted the gold from the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds and brought it into the tent of meeting as a memorial for the Israelites before the Lord. Okay, so just to go over a little bit of what we just read and what we're gonna get into for tomorrow. I'm just gonna read a little bit here that is not part of the scriptures. So one might like to believe that the orders to kill were those of Moses acting on his own. But there is every reason to believe that Moses acted as at God's direction. The question then arises, how can a loving God either direct or condone such action? The answer is undoubtedly very complex. As for the woman, it was they who turned the Israelites away from the Lord at Peor. As for the young boys, perhaps they would have presented a continuing threat to Israel as they grew into manhood. Such a threat will indeed be confirmed some years later when Midianites from other areas engage in war against Israel. The young girls, on the other hand, were to be taken as slaves into the homes of the Israelites, where they would at least be spared inevitable spiritual enslavement of the sensuous worship of Baal of Peor. But even these possible explanations are not easy to accept. In order to appreciate more fully God's actions, it is necessary to understand the level of moral consciousness of the times. Among the nations of this era, wars of revenge involving total destruction, of confiscation of property, and either extermination or enslavement of men, women, and children are commonplace and expected. That is doubtless why there is no hint that the Israelites felt the slightest discomfort in carrying out Moses' orders. In raising the moral consciousness of first a nation and then the world, God must take his people as he finds them and introduce principles of righteousness within a moral framework with which the people can identify. The fact that the women and children were saved from death initially may indicate that an exception was made to the customary practices of such a war of revenge. If so, the reason for the exception becomes important. Quite possibly, the men of Israel were still enticed by the Midian women and did not understand the continuing moral threat which the woman posed. Viewed in that light, Moses' action takes on greatly increased respectability. It also appears that God is teaching a vitally important lesson about the attitude which his people must have regarding the various human lusts which war against the soul. Even the weakest of lusts, perhaps represented here by the women and young boys, must be resisted as completely and early as possible in order to prevent their success in moments of moral vulnerability. The amount of the Midianites' destruction concludes with various directions concerning the concerning the bounty which was taken in the conquest. And even from this part of the account, profitable lessons can be learned, particularly about the rewards accruing to those who wage war against sin. So thank you so much for joining me today on February 12th. I hope that did, kind of put into perspective today's reading for you. And with that, we're just going to truck on, continuing on with our readings. I want to say stay blessed, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.